I'm a Muslim. I believe in the religion of Islam, which believes in brotherhood, complete brotherhood of all people. But at the same time that I believe in this brotherhood, I don't believe in forcing my desire for brotherhood upon those who aren't willing to accept it. Expresses the existence of is the God that the Christians profess to believe in themselves, and the God that the Jews believe in, one God, the creator of the universe. The Muslims believe in the God that created the universe, and I think the Christians do, and the Jews do. Now, as long as all of them are talking about the creator, the Jews may call him Jehovah, and Christians may have another name for him. Those who are Arabic-speaking refer to him as Allah. Well, we believe in the same God.
Malcolm X, originally born Malcolm Little, is one of the most influential figures in American history, especially in the realms of civil rights and African American empowerment. His journey from a troubled youth to a dedicated Muslim and an ardent advocate for racial justice is a powerful story of personal transformation and ideological evolution. This narrative is deeply intertwined with his conversion to Islam, which profoundly shaped his worldview and activism. Malcolm Little was born on May 19, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. His early life was marked by significant upheaval and trauma. His father, Earl Little, was a Baptist minister and a staunch supporter of Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association, which promoted the return of African Americans to Africa and the creation of an independent black nation. This affiliation made the Little family a target for white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan and the Black Legion, who harassed and threatened them. In 1931, when Malcolm was 6 years old, his father was found dead, a presumed victim of a racist attack. Although officially ruled an accident, many believed Earl Little was murdered by white supremacists. This tragedy was compounded by the mental breakdown of Malcolm's mother, Louise, who was eventually institutionalized. Consequently, Malcolm and his siblings were dispersed among foster homes and orphanages, leading to a fractured and tumultuous childhood. As a young man, Malcolm moved to Boston to live with his half-sister, Ella. He quickly became involved in street life, engaging in various criminal activities such as gambling, drug dealing, and burglary. By the age of 20, Malcolm had been arrested for burglary and sentenced to 10 years in prison. It was during this incarceration that Malcolm's life began to change dramatically. Malcolm's time in prison was a pivotal period of transformation. Initially rebellious and resistant to authority, he began to educate himself extensively, spending long hours in the prison library reading books on history, philosophy, and religion. This period of intense self-education and introspection laid the foundation for his future intellectual and spiritual growth. He also improved his language skills, studying the dictionary to enhance his vocabulary and articulation. Malcolm's transformation was further catalyzed by his family's introduction to the Nation of Islam. His siblings, particularly his brother Reginald, wrote to him about the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam's ideology was a radical departure from mainstream Islam, blending religious doctrine with a strong emphasis on black empowerment, self-reliance, and a narrative that portrayed whites as inherently evil. Intrigued by these teachings, Malcolm began corresponding with Elijah Muhammad and studying the Nation of Islam's literature. He was particularly drawn to the idea of reclaiming his identity and heritage, which had been stripped away by slavery and systemic racism. This led him to reject his slave surname, Little, and adopt X as a symbol of his lost African ancestry, a practice that became a hallmark for many Nation of Islam members. Upon his release from prison in 1952, Malcolm X dedicated himself fully to the Nation of Islam. His charisma, intelligence, and unwavering commitment quickly earned him a place as one of the most prominent and dynamic leaders of the Nation of Islam. He traveled across the country, establishing new temples and recruiting thousands of new members. His influence extended from New York to Detroit, Los Angeles, and beyond. Malcolm X's oratory skills were unmatched. His speeches were electrifying, characterized by their fiery rhetoric and uncompromising stance on racial issues. He criticized mainstream civil rights leaders, such as Martin Luther King Jr., for their advocacy of nonviolence and integration, which he saw as ineffective and accommodating to white supremacy. Instead, Malcolm X preached a message of self-defense, black nationalism, and complete separation from white society. His message resonated with many African Americans who were frustrated with the slow progress of the civil rights movement and the persistent racism they faced. Malcolm X's call for black pride, economic self-sufficiency, and political independence struck a chord with those seeking a more assertive and confrontational approach to racial injustice. Despite his success within the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X began to grow disillusioned with the organization. His disillusionment was fueled by several factors, including Elijah Muhammad's moral and ethical contradictions. Malcolm discovered that Elijah Muhammad, who preached strict adherence to moral conduct, was secretly involved in extramarital affairs with several young women in the Nation of Islam, resulting in multiple illegitimate children. This hypocrisy deeply troubled Malcolm, who had held Elijah Muhammad in the highest regard. Additionally, Malcolm's own ideological growth was pushing him beyond the Nation of Islam's narrow doctrines. He was increasingly interested in international issues and the broader Muslim world. His desire to engage with other civil rights organizations and his growing advocacy for political activism also put him at odds with the Nation of Islam's leadership, which discouraged involvement in mainstream politics. The turning point came after Malcolm's public comments following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. His remark that the assassination was a case of the chickens coming home to roost was seen as insensitive and led to a public rebuke from Elijah Muhammad, who ordered Malcolm to observe a period of silence. This public chastisement further strained their relationship and set the stage for Malcolm's departure from the Nation of Islam. In 1964, Malcolm X made the life-changing decision to undertake the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca that is a central pillar of the Islamic faith. This journey marked a significant turning point in his life. In Mecca, Malcolm encountered Muslims of all races and ethnicities, united in their worship of Allah. This experience profoundly impacted him, challenging his previous beliefs about race and racism. Malcolm X described his transformative experience in Mecca in his autobiography, co-authored with Alex Haley. He wrote about the sense of brotherhood he felt with fellow Muslims from all over the world, regardless of their skin color. This revelation led him to reject the Nation of Islam's separatist ideology and embrace a more inclusive, orthodox form of Islam. He adopted the name El-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz and began to advocate for racial unity and human rights on a global scale. In Mecca, Malcolm experienced true Islamic principles that transcended race and ethnicity. This experience deeply resonated with him, leading him to recognize the potential for global solidarity among all oppressed people. He met Muslims from various cultural backgrounds who treated him as a brother, a stark contrast to the racial divisions he had witnessed in the United States. This profound spiritual awakening broadened his perspective and reinforced his belief in the possibility of racial harmony and equality. Upon returning to the United States, Malcolm X announced his departure from the Nation of Islam and founded the Organization of Afro-American Unity. The Organization of Afro-American Unity was modeled after the Organization of African Unity, and its mission was to unite all people of African descent in the fight for human rights and to promote economic and social independence for African Americans. The Organization of Afro-American Unity represented a significant shift in Malcolm X's approach. While he continued to advocate for Black empowerment and self-defense, his rhetoric became more inclusive and focused on human rights. He began to collaborate with other civil rights leaders and organizations, seeking common ground and solidarity in the struggle against racism and oppression. The Organization of Afro-American Unity also aimed to raise political consciousness among African Americans, encouraging them to engage in the political process and advocate for policies that would improve their communities. Malcolm X emphasized the importance of education, economic self-sufficiency, and cultural pride as foundations for achieving true liberation. Even after his return from Mecca and his break from the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X continued to evolve in his thinking. He began to explore the potential for alliances with other oppressed groups and to advocate for broader coalitions in the struggle for justice. His speeches from this period reflect a growing awareness of the interconnectedness of various forms of oppression and the need for a unified response. Malcolm X's growing engagement with the broader Muslim world and his interactions with leaders from Africa, the Middle East, and Asia also influenced his thinking. He began to see the struggle for Black liberation in the United States as part of a larger global movement for human rights and social justice. This evolving perspective was evident in his speeches and writings, where he increasingly emphasized the need for solidarity and cooperation among all oppressed people. He called for a global movement against imperialism, racism, and exploitation, recognizing that the fight for justice and equality transcended national and racial boundaries. Malcolm X's transformation and his new approach had a significant impact on the broader civil rights movement. His call for Black pride, self-reliance, and human rights resonated deeply with many African Americans, particularly those disillusioned with the slow pace of progress and the limitations of nonviolent protest. His emphasis on internationalism and human rights helped to broaden the scope of the civil rights movement, linking it to global struggles against colonialism and oppression. This perspective helped to foster a greater sense of solidarity and unity among people of African descent worldwide. Malcolm X's speeches and writings during this period reflect his evolving thought and his deepening commitment to a more inclusive and comprehensive approach to social justice. His willingness to engage with other leaders and organizations demonstrated his recognition of the importance of unity and collaboration in the fight for equality. Tragically, Malcolm X's life was cut short on February 21, 1965, when he was assassinated while giving a speech at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City. He was only 39 years old. His assassination was believed to be the result of tensions with the Nation of Islam, although the full circumstances remain a subject of controversy and debate. Despite his untimely death, Malcolm X's legacy endures. His autobiography, published posthumously, remains a seminal work in understanding his life, beliefs, and transformation. His speeches and writings continue to inspire and influence generations of activists, scholars, and ordinary people committed to the fight for justice and equality. Malcolm X's conversion to Islam was a profound and defining aspect of his life. It transformed his personal identity, reshaped his worldview, and had a lasting impact on his activism. His embrace of Sunni Islam and the principles of internationalism and human rights broadened the scope of his struggle for racial justice, linking it to global movements for liberation and equality. Malcolm X's journey to Islam highlights the power of faith and education in personal transformation and social activism. It underscores the importance of continually questioning and evolving one's beliefs in the pursuit of truth and justice. His life serves as a testament to the potential for change and the enduring fight against oppression, inspiring future generations to carry forward his legacy of courage, resilience, and unwavering commitment to human dignity. Malcolm X's life story is a compelling narrative of personal redemption and ideological evolution. His transformation from Malcolm Little, a young man lost in a world of crime and despair, to El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, a global advocate for human rights and racial justice, is a powerful testament to the capacity for change and growth. His journey to Islam was a central part of this transformation, providing him with a spiritual foundation and a broader perspective on the struggle for justice. Through his speeches, writings, and relentless activism, Malcolm X left an indelible mark on the civil rights movement and the broader fight for social justice. His legacy continues to inspire those who seek to challenge oppression, promote equality, and advocate for human dignity. Malcolm X's life and work remind us of the importance of staying true to our principles, continually seeking knowledge and fighting for a better world for all people.